All right, hi everyone. It's at 12. We'll get it started soon. I'm just waiting for Alexis to join. She should join us shortly. Um, so we have Cynthia here, and then waiting for Alexis. We're gonna um, have them to share their best practices when they're doing the counseling in their school. And then in a bit, we'll also have Alexis to talk about. She actually has Paolo in her classroom, and then she'll share about how Paolo helps her to manage different student behaviors and what a valuable data source that she's getting from Paolo. Hi, Sarah, welcome. And we have an early attendee. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Aniola. Also welcome. Thanks for being on time. Hi, Aaron. Thanks for joining us today. Um, and then Sarah, if I remember your last name correctly, you also have Paolo in your school. So seems like we have two counselors who had Paolo in their school to join us. Yes. Hi, Sarah. Nice good to see you again. Right. So let's get started. Um, so today's topic, what we want to talk about is how to navigating challenge student behavior. And today we're not going to talk about individual behaviors and in terms of how to design an intervention. What we want to talk about is how can we develop a framework in MTSS to um, to have a better understanding of what kind of behavior require additional help, and to develop that framework, you can really start having the right expectation for the student behavior rather than relying on subjective observation. And we'll talk about why it's more effective that way. And I'm sure that this is not the first time you hear about MTSS, but I think um, every school has its own MTSS, and then I think it's really good that we can bring in everyone and share how they define their MTSS, and then how do they kind of decide which intervention will fit into which tier. So with Paolo, we're offering a SEL solution to middle school specifically, and today we're going to focus on those student behaviors in middle school. We also have Cynthia here to talk about her experience in high school, and I think that will really bring us a new, kind of like forward-thinking perspective, like how students can kind of transition from what they are experiencing in middle school and how they can kind of carry on, and then be able to kind of be familiar with the system when they go to high school. To be honest, I when I was in school, I did not know that we have an NTSS system. But now I think back, I started to understand better how my counselors made decisions for me, and then which tier that I might be in at the time. And then we'll talk about how SEL can be a tier one solution in NTSS. In fact, since COVID, a lot of schools start implementing school-wide uh, program like social emotional learning or school-wide intervention that either student do a 5 minute mindfulness before the class, or they have this advisory period that the students can come in and talk about their problems in their academic and personal matter. And lastly, we're going to talk about how social emotional data is essential for you to um, quickly identify who should be in tier one, who should be in tier two, and potentially give you some clue what kind of intervention you should provide to be the most effective. Right. So we're Palo SEO. How we're different from other SEO provider is that we see SEO as a process, not just a curriculum. And this process requires a collaborative effort from everyone, and that includes students, teachers, and all the admin and you, the counselor. You can kind of think Palo SEL as uh, a tool to really join the effort to take care of students' mental health. And oh, Alexis is here, perfect timing. Maybe I missed it because I was talking. Um, yeah, so today I'm very glad to have Cynthia and Alexis to join us to have this discussion. And to be honest, I'm just a researcher, so there are a lot of things that I can bring from my research expertise. But I really think that combined with uh, practice that uh, there's a lot of student behaviors that I cannot really comprehend. It's hard for me to imagine what's it like in school other than being a student in a school. But Cynthia and Alexis will be able to offer a more practical perspective on the matter. Alexis, welcome. I just started without you, but you joined at the right time. Um, if you, I'm not sure if you can, yeah, of course. Can you guys introduce yourself a little bit? Because I don't think those titles really do the justice of what you guys do, and perhaps share interesting fact about you. I think it'll be a little fun. But if you feel like that's too personal, don't have to. Cynthia, why don't we start with you?
Okay, thank you. I was a school counselor for 25 years. I did all levels, kindergarten through 12th grade during that 25 years, but not at the same time. I was most of my years are high school years, but I did have some middle school experience and also elementary. I guess, and I am a teen anxiety coach now. I work out of this office that I'm sitting in right now, one-on-one with kids on Zoom about anxiety. And I guess a fun fact is one time I was Maria in The Sound of Music.
Thank you for sharing, Cynthia. I don't know which musical that is, but I'm definitely gonna look it up and find you on YouTube. Alexis, welcome to join us. Can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Alexis Jordan, and I got my start in education almost 10 years ago as a classroom teacher. I've taught almost every subject in middle school, from math to science to debate to history. And then following my years as a teacher, I later went to school to become a counselor. And now I have a large focus in mental health and specifically social emotional learning, which I love. And a fun fact about me is that I am a stellar ping pong player.
Oh wow, now I have two YouTube videos to look for. Thank you, Alexis. And I really appreciate all my counselors through my education journey, and thank you for everyone to join here, to kind of talk about this because uh, I don't know how much counselors talk about this together. But I certainly think that we all do important work, and what I hope we can get out of this is that we can all take something back to what we're working on for students and really bring a significant impact in their lives. Right. So we have uh, a lot of counselors in our chat room, and well, would love to hear what is that one word comes to your mind when you hear student behavior. You can unmute your mic and then just share that one word and maybe elaborate a little bit more, or you're welcome to typing in the chat, and then we'll bring in to have that discussion. For me, it's always I guess I have to think about it. I guess the first word come to mind is it's personal. I think there's always a personal reason behind their behavior. I don't believe that there's a student who is intentionally misbehave. Um, they're too young to do that, and so certainly it's also always something personal. Um, Sarah stated diverse, challenging, ever-changing. We have Remy said fluctuation. We have Aaron said a window into their feelings. I really like Cynthia's. it's a message to us. Certainly, I do resonate with that. Right, thank you for your sharing. Does anyone want to elaborate a little bit more about what you said? Okay, we'll miss it. Um, and I know we all joined here for our personal reason. What is that something you would like to learn or hoping to learn from this webinar? And since we have two experts here, I will try to direct my question toward what you guys want to learn, so make this webinar a little more personal as well. So what is something that you hope to learn from this webinar? Again, feel free to share in the chat. Right. If you don't have one, feel free to type in the chat still. We can definitely get to that, but I'm going to move on. Right. So the first thing, uh, uh, I don't think we overstate this, and I'm sure everyone know about that. In middle school, it's really a rapid change for our students. They're going through a lot of changes, and it's a transformation, right? They're becoming a teenager, and a lot of things are still developing, and then a lot of chaos in their world. And this is what we think they most need our support and guidance. One thing the research I would like to point out is that there are two rapid change in child development, and there's one particular skill called executive function. It also has a rapid growth during the middle school age, and you can see I highlighted over here. And not only that, they're developing the code functions, which helps them to be able to turn the assignment on time, be able to attend a class and wake up and prepare and stay organized. They're also practicing their hard EFs, and those requires a lot of social emotional learning. How do they self-regulate when they feel anxious? When they're feeling angry, how do they understand that emotion and be able to communicate? And these are all the things that they are learning. And sometimes they might um, be trying out many different things. And then myself might work in the school, some might not work with their friends, and then that kind of make them a little bit um, seem dysregulated. But I think under that blanket, they're all really just trying to try new things and trying to figure out what's this new superpower that I get. All of a sudden, they understand there's my preference and other people's preference. But if you feel that there are a lot of just whatever what's going on with them. And another thing add on top of that is that they are fiercely seeking acceptance in the environments, and they're doing a lot of dance, right? I'm not sure if you guys remember your middle school, but there's a lot of, does that person like me? Do I like that person? Is this group hate me, or does will that group accept me if I move along? There's a lot of things going on, and so on top of all the new development of the body and mind, at the same time there are a lot of peer pressures playing to it. And I'm sure that we have seen a lot of this. They're trying to bow to the peer pressure, and then they're very sensitive about other people's opinions and reactions. And therefore, it really stress their emotions, and therefore it causes a lot of mental, not necessarily issues, but I guess behavior issues that cause disturbance in the class. And these are some of the common ones that research has identified. So what is suggested by the ASCA, and I'm sure that everyone's familiar with this, is to develop an MTS system of support. And then I think it's perfectly reasonable to do that, because if we comes down to say how much time you can spend with how much time you can spend with students, you don't really have enough time to meet every single one of them. So the only way to do is to develop a support system to whether it's giving them the tool or giving them the support to be able to kind of problem solving themselves, and then if they really need additional support, that's when they move the team to a higher tier, and we give them the additional support that they uh, might need. So that's basically all my presentation. And I have something more to talk about, but first I really want to learn about what do you do at your site for student behavior? Do you have an MTSS? If you do, how do you guys define and how do you guys allocate resources to help the students? Um, or if you don't have an MTSS, um, do you have tier or how do you guys deal with different student behaviors? Um, I would like to start with Alexis, if you can share with us how you manage your student behavior on your site. And then we'll have Cynthia to share with hers.
Yes, I'm happy to share. So I'm at the middle school level. We have 6th through 8th grade. Um, and at our school, we do have an MTSS. However, it's definitely still developing. We're a smaller school district, so we might not necessarily always have all the resources to allocate to really create a robust system to address all the student behaviors. So it really often comes down to a lot of collaboration and teamwork with the team of counselors that we have and the teachers here. But a lot of the problems we run into is just even finding time to communicate about what is going on in the classroom. So often our teachers are trying to manage it within their classroom, and that's what they're told, try to manage it within your classroom first. But then that causes burnout and frustration for them. And so sometimes we're not hearing about all those challenging behaviors because maybe it's going to the dean or maybe it's going to admin, and the counselors are like, oh my gosh, if we had known this is happening, we could have done some intervention sooner. So being able to have a quicker way to communicate or an easier way to get data would really help us be able to better build out our system. We do small groups. We do a lot of individual counseling. And another kind of challenging part is we'd love to offer more tier 1 support, but anyone that's tried to implement a tier 1 SEL approach or program can know how difficult it is to find the time to train the teachers, to get everyone on board, to even find the time to implement it. And what's been really interesting is having Paolo in one of our class or a couple of our classrooms this year. The implementation was super, super quick. I think it only took about a day maybe to get everything set up, and the kids are already up and running. So it's been interesting to see how that tier 1 support has been going in that classroom when we really don't have it happening in any of our other classrooms. But that would be something I would like to be able to implement more to address more behaviors as like a prevention measure rather than always just consistently having to respond to things once they've kind of blown up and gotten really big.
Thank you for sharing, Alexis. I do have a follow-up question, but I would also like to have Cynthia to share how she manages her students' behaviors.
We had in our MTSS system was where there was a referral page that was out on the website that a parent could fill out, a teacher could fill out, a student could fill out on themselves, which did never really happen, or whoever saw the problem or thought that there was more that needed to be done could fill it out. Then we would kind of ask questions of every person who was around that kid, even if it was somebody in the lunchroom or the bus driver or the nurse or people sometimes that are forgotten in the system, just so that we can see how does everyone see this kid, because someone might have a behavior problem in a class because of something about that class, but they don't have behavior problems in other areas. So it was a way for us to see, is there certain things, certain places it's happening, certain times of day. Also, certainly having an interview with the student themselves to just say what goes on in this room and why is this room working for you? Why does this room not work for you? And finding out those kinds of things. And we did always ask the teacher to do interventions first in the classroom, like try more tier 1 things that maybe they hadn't tried, making sure that the parents were aware, because sometimes students would be referred to us, but no one had talked to their parents about the problem. And sometimes just their parents knowing stops the problem, whatever it is. So making sure that some beginning steps had happened first before we really jumped in with plans. And then after the teachers tried different interventions for about 6 weeks, if they did not see any improvement, then they were probably going to move to tier 2. And then we would have a meeting to talk about what does tier 2 look like. Is it more intensive stuff with the teacher, or is it more with counseling, or both, or even outside referrals that might need to be made outside of a school?
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. I do have a question for both of you. I think what I've heard is that both of you have a source of data to be able to, like, whether it's checking with the students or looking at the teacher's referral, but overall, you would like to keep students in tier 1 and give them the support um, for that tier. Is there anything that you guys do that you find it particularly helpful in terms of identifying students and keeping them in? I know Alexis doesn't have tier 1, but the first level of intervention.
I think something that we do, at least to help manage with some of the challenging behaviors that we're seeing, that we do have a sort of a tier 1, I would say, is we do offer a lot of ways for them to be positive leaders on campus. And that's something we are able to offer. We have lots of different clubs, we have lots of different leadership opportunities. And so something we have done is identify maybe those students who are ending up with a lot of discipline, but they're also showing a lot of leadership qualities at the same time. We've been able to funnel them into kind of a school leadership program, and that's actually been really effective for us.
That's really cool. And I'm also happy to hear that students at that young age is willing to take on that role and helping their peers. That's very inspiration to me.
Well, and I think using something positive is so much better than a punishment. I don't think punishments really work anyway, or discipline consequences or whatever. And so doing a positive thing to get them to have more positive behavior is what you're really wanting them to do anyway. I hadn't really thought about that, but we had a Renaissance program. And, a lot of times those student reward programs end up just going to all the good kids, and the kids that don't need any intervention, like they're already doing great. But we did put in a part where if they made any, like even a percentage of an improvement from one semester to another, or 9 weeks to another 9 weeks, they would still be able to get some kind of reward. And that picked up a lot of those kids that were at risk, because they could do better on their attendance for a 9 weeks, and then they would get some sort of reward, or they would, instead of having a 30% F, they had a 50% F, and we could still like say, well, you increased your grade 20%, even if it wasn't like exactly where we wanted it to be. So I think those doing positive things, I think, is really encouraging. I hope more and more schools are doing those kind of rewards.
Yeah, that makes me think of the growth mindset and fixed mindset. Because if you only giving the achievers reward, then students are always going to think that, oh, I'm never going to reach that, and then they stop giving effort. But when you're talking about I'll reward your growth, doesn't matter how incremental it is, then you put students into this growth mindset that they are able to say, all I have to do is just continue improving, and there's also something after that, not just for the winners. Really like that. Yeah, and I really like Alex's way. I think that put a lot of trust to your students, and I'm also glad that their students are doing that. Because really, if I think back, a lot of time I really want my peers to support me instead of being cop out by my peers. So if I have someone who are in the leadership position will be able to put me on the side and say, hey, Michael, I need to talk to you. I think that would be really, really great. Did you guys make any mistake that you would like to avoid, or would like to kind of share to help other counselors who are currently making the mistake to be aware of it, or to improve on that? or it doesn't have to be a mistake. It can be something that you feel like um, we can recognize this way of handling it. Like Cynthia was saying that positive is always better than punishment. I think that's a very good approach because I think a lot of time um, it's almost like um, the nail that stick out gets hammered down, and I think that's not necessarily a good thing. Maybe that nails stick out for a particular reason. Maybe you can hang a cloth on it. I don't know, but I'm not sure if that's the right analogy. But um, if you guys have something that to share, and then also, of course, if you have other counselors who have success in your program and then you think is worth sharing, feel free to unmute your mic to share as well. Cynthia, do you guys have or Alexis on not necessarily a mistake, I guess. But you know what I mean. Anything that you would like to
Was this
consider.
where my story would fit in about the boy who worked in the kitchen?
Yes, I would love to hear that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we had a student who was, he had been in trouble all of high school because he didn't ever do his work. He hated school. He just drug his feet all the time. And so we were at our wits' end, like, we don't know how to help this person. And so when he was a senior, I started talking to him about, "Well, what are you going to do after high school? Because, you're not getting any work done. You're not even maybe going to pass. So, what's your next step? What's going to happen?" And he said he was interested in being a chef. Well, we had a trade school that was near us, but you had to have passing grades in order to go there, and he didn't have that. And so we worked out a deal with him that if he would do so much work, and we didn't make him do it 100% because he was doing nothing. So we made it like probably medium. If you do 50% of your work or pass certain classes, you can work in the kitchen in the school kitchen, helping them make meals or plan meals or whatever. And he did that. And he started doing so much of his work, and he was so proud of himself being in the kitchen. He loved working in there. They loved him. The head of the kitchen came and told me that they were going to hire him after he graduated from high school because he was so good at working in the kitchen. And so I feel like that was like a really outside of the box idea. And I don't think, you can't do that for 100 kids, but if you really think about what is going to be best for this student and what's going to inspire them to do something different, sometimes it is something weird, like working in the school kitchen. Other kids wouldn't care for that, but he really liked it.
How did you find out that's something will really move him?
It was part of I always interviewed all the kids when they were sent to me for not doing what they were supposed to do. I would ask a lot of questions about what is it about school? What is it about this class? What is it about this work? Whatever it is that they weren't doing, just tell me everything. Why don't you want to do this? What is the barrier? What's this obstacle? And then, he I think he really didn't know what the obstacle was, but so then I thought, well, how am I going to get him excited about school or excited about doing anything? So then I just started asking him, what do you like? What do you want to do? And then that's where this kitchen idea came in because he said he wanted to be a chef.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's really good. And then what we hope to accomplish in Palo is also be able to get that,
Mhm.
because otherwise you really don't have time to interview every students. But if you can
Mhm.
give some ideas of who they are or what their current interest is, you can definitely facilitate the conversation into that. And so um, just want to make sure that we don't have any other sharing before I move on, because I throw a bunch of questions out there. Alexis, do you have something to share or?
Yeah, I was just going to add on to Cynthia's story. I was just trying to think, that really made me think of, right now I'm doing this study skills group at school as a tier 2 intervention, and it would be so easy to focus on, okay, this is where you're lacking, or this is what's not happening. But it's so important to focus on the strengths first, especially when you're trying to help a student improve on a behavior, on their grades, or wherever it is. and being able to come from that strength space, like, oh, but look, you're so good at cooking or whatever it is, and helping them envision, well, look, you have all these amazing things. How can we use those strengths that you already have to help you move forward with maybe this problem that you're having at school? And I think it's really easy for us to focus on what they're lacking or the weaknesses, rather than focusing on the strengths.
Yes, sir. I totally agree with that. I think if you can play into students' strength, um, and then sometimes they really need some confidence boost, because if they don't even have the, I guess, motive to come to school, it's really hard to get them to do any other things. Um, and so I want to just, I guess we have enough conversation on this, but I just want to bring out this triangle again. I think when we are talking about different tiers and different tiers of support, very important to remember that the majority of the student will be in tier one. And so if you can take care of the students in tier one, then you don't really, um, how do I say this? So the time and effort into tier two can be dramatically less. And so this is a win-win situation to try to keep all the students in tier one. And of course, some of them will be into tier two, and that's why we have to design an MTSS tiers, not just one tier. And I want to point out that Palo is a perfect fit for tier one, as Alexis mentioned that they do use Palo as a SEL um, uh, in her school, and that helps students to start learning some of the skills that they can manage their own behavior and develop that executive functioning uh, that I shared in the very beginning of the webinar. And we'll quickly skip this. And I want to show this chart. Um, Earlier I asked our panelists what are ways or data that they see to define if students in tier one or tier two. And I want to point out that from my research, a lot of time counselors have to collaborate with teachers, right? Because teachers are they spend the most of the time with students, and so therefore very often when a student it's in borderline moving to tier two is usually because there's an office referral or there's a disciplinary report. Um, this is definitely an issue in that. And then what is that I forgot whether Cynthia or Alexis mentioned this, that um, teachers have different perceptions of a particular student, and then they might have different stories about them. They might have different impression of them, and then there's a lot of implicit bias in this. And so um, if MT assistants solely rely on just how many office referrals there is, um, this MT assistant won't work. It won't really identify the student who are actually in need, or you might um, miss a lot of students who actually need to be in tier two. And so we kind of talked about this in a bit already. We're going to move forward with that. Some of the biases that are found in research, and this is just some examples to illustrate this. Not necessarily this is the only thing that's happening, but for example, multiracial female are more likely to receive a disciplinary referral from their English teachers. I find that interesting. African American Latino students are more than twice likely their white peer to experience school suspension. Um, the likelihood of a student being referred to the school counselor for disruptive behavior increases with previous at-risk behavior and disciplinary infractions. I think the third point really pinned it down that if a student who has office referral before, they tend to get more attention, and then sometimes they don't really need to get to tier two. They're just working on their skills, and maybe keeping it tier one might be more helpful. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that focus on one data resource, focus on one data source is never enough. And um, I encourage counselor to try to do observations in the hallway, or what Cynthia does is interview them and trying to understand why you're not coming to school, rather than solely rely on one piece of information. And that really makes Palo SEL a different SEL compared to other SEL because we're not only making a great curriculum for middle schools, we are also a data source for MTSS. And so while students are reflecting their strength and interests or learning on our SEL program, we collect their inputs and we analyze their inputs for you. You can think about the data that we will be able to provide for you can be as simple as a red flag. Imagine a student state that I want to hit my brother or I'm being abused at home, or even they say they're gonna say something that they're gonna harm other people themselves. Those language will be captured and we will send you a flag and you will be able to see what students are talking about on the platform so you can do some preventative action if it's needed. And what does it look like? Um, you can sort of think Palo works as a tier one intervention while providing SEO. It also provides you analytic such as insightful intervention. Assuming you do have a students who is at the verge of going to tier two and then you're about to have a one-on-one with them, instead of starting a conversation from scratch, asking how are you doing, you'll be able to get some ideas from Palo SEO and then maybe ask them, I heard that you have some problem with your family. Can you tell me more about it? That can immediately save you 10 to 15 minutes of beating around the bush trying to find out what's wrong with them. Even further, you can use the Power Analytic to use it as a regular measurement of other program that you're working on. So for example, let's say Alexis is a student leadership club. The program's recently implemented. They want to see how the program is doing for some of the students. You can look into our counselor dashboard and see that if students are talking about that leadership club program, right? So we might ask students a question like, what's your favorite things to do in school? And imagine 10% of students mentioned that I would love to go to the leadership club again. They're so helpful and then they help me to cope with my anxiety. That give you a resource uh, to see whether the program you recently implemented, whether it's SEL or other programs, is really helping the students. And you can go even further down to see that if students do go to tier three, all those can be useful information for you to trace back. Oh, when did this happen? How did it happen? In the past 3 months, what did student talk about on the platform? And this is where the Palo magic really happens because just the SEL curriculum in the classroom doesn't really do it justice. I think that we are enabling students to advocate for themselves, right? So now their voice is going to be heard, not specific. There's no way you can screen through all the student responses. That's why we have, we'll highlight some of the students who are in distress, or we're only flagging words that might cause severe harm to them or other. And so however, that can really bring your attention to students that who might be falling through the crack. Maybe they are perfectly behaved students in the classroom, but they are under a lot of stress. Those students might need more help than other students who are constantly being mentioned by your teachers. So this is where our dashboard can really help. So this is a version of our counselor dashboard, and then we do have counselors who are using this in our webinar right now. So if I don't know if Aaron, you want to share how you use the counselor dashboard, please share with us. But this is what you can expect to look at if you have SEL, Palo SEL in your school. You'll get a dashboard like this, and then you'll see a list of students where you can check on them. When you click on one of the names, we'll be able to show you that student's personal profile, and you'll be able to see how they're feeling over time, and then what are the things they're saying on the platform. In this case, seems like this student, Kale, is having some uncomfortableness in the beginning of the month, and then they're saying something that I don't care about myself, and this can be a sign of an early sign of warning, um, to check in with them and see if they're okay. That's all for the webinar, but I do want to see if Erin, you are able to share with us. Erin is a middle school counselor. She's currently using Palo, and then we had some conversation about counselor dashboard and how they use it in the school. I'm not sure if Erin, you can speak about this. Okay, she's not here. Okay, she was really busy. Alexis, you also have our Palo dashboard. Can you talk about how you use this in your school?
Yes, so we're still rather new to it. However, what's been, I think, a really interesting feature is that flag feature and being able to quickly see which students maybe are going through a rough week or a rough patch, or maybe it's a consistent trend over time. And you're able to kind of quickly glance and see which students might need a check-in. And of course, we're not using this as the only source of data, but having this in addition to, knowing a lot of the students, maybe hearing from teachers, hearing from the dean on discipline, and being able to combine this with all that other qualitative data is really interesting. And maybe if there's a student you even want to keep an eye on a little bit, but maybe you've already worked with them a lot and you're like, okay, I just kind of maybe want to see a little bit how they're doing. It's interesting to be able to kind of do a quick check in here and see maybe if you need to do a follow-up meeting after you've already worked with a student a lot.
That's great. Yeah, I'm glad that Palo is helping you with the counseling job. Cynthia, do you have comment on this after seeing this dashboard? What do you think you might be able to use this for your practice?
I wish I would have had this. This would have been amazing. I spent a lot of time, pulling kids in and talking to them and building relationships with them because I think building relationships is the number one thing that we can do. And so this would have been helpful, even if I wasn't pulling them in for a red flag. This would give me just information that I could. I liked what you said earlier about instead of wasting a lot of time like trying to get to the issue, you can kind of see what some of the issues already are and you can just start there. Especially if you already have a relationship with them, you can pretty much just start with, okay, here's the tough stuff, like what's going on. And so if I knew that and I had this information in front of me, it would have made my job easier and I could get to things faster and move on to the next thing, which is we always need to do.
Thank you. Yes, that's what we hope to accomplish. And we are working on the new version. It will provide even richer insight about the students. We're working on it, and then we plan to release it at the end of this month. And so, if you already have Palo in your school, look out for it. It will be beautiful and nice, and then you'll be wowed. Um, if you don't have Palo, come Santa and check it out. We're here for you, and we're here to be a partner. Um, I do want to mention one thing, and Alexis, if you can talk a little bit about this, will be great. Alexis and I, we talk about how Paula works in her school, and one thing that she mentioned, I think, is very important to stress. There's a lot of schools are having hard time to implement their tier one intervention. Alexis also mentioned it a bit earlier. Alexis, can you talk about how in terms of how easy it is for you to sign up Palo, and can you kind of walk us through the process of it? You say it take about a day. What was it like, and how did you start? And I guess how did you initiate it, and then how fast, how easy does it get to start immediately in your classroom?
Yes. So someone who's been an educator for a while and always interested in SEL, not everyone else in your school has always been on the same page. And so sometimes it can be really, really hard. There's a lot of barriers to implementing SEL, it's really a full school-wide approach for it to work well. And so what's been so different to me about Palo from any other curriculum that I've seen or worked with is the fact that it is so easy to implement. Teachers, even if the teachers aren't really on board with SEL in general, this is such a simple solution. They could be as involved as they want or as less involved as they want. So if you wanted to have a tier one for all your classrooms and all your kiddos. Palo is super easy. All it really takes is onboarding the email addresses, which I think all of that process maybe took about a day. The teachers just get a link, everyone gets the link, and the kids are great on the computer. All you have to do is log in and then they're on. And we've had a really great response from our classes who have been participating. And it's just been a really easy implementation, which is rare for a program or a curriculum like this.
Yes, and I think that's what we're trying to accomplish as well. We understand that all educators are already super busy, super tight on their schedule, so many things on their plate, so many students take care, and then we don't want this to be an urban burden. So um, what we really want to do is like, as I said, we want to be your SEL partner, and if that means that we do all the backing work just to get SEL into your classroom, we will do it. And as Alexis described it, we're here to really help you guys out, and hopefully you guys will consider. But as you can see, it's a very powerful tool. It's not just a curriculum; it's a whole solution to bring everyone together to care about your students' well-being. Um, so thank you for everyone to join in, and great conversation. Thank you, Thinsias. Thank you, Alexis. Thank you for your participation. I'm going to stay here for another 5 minutes if you have any questions for me. Otherwise, I appreciate your time, and I hope you learned something from us. Uh, we'll have continued webinar, so make sure you check out our website, and then we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thinsia.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Alexis, for joining. Have a good day. All right. So I'm going to end the webinar here. Aaron, nice to see you again. We'll talk to you soon. And for any additional information, please visit palonow.com. And then feel free to schedule your one-on-one with us. And we can talk about how we can implement SEO into your classroom.